This was the number one thing that I changed in order for me to drastically change my sales. Hi, I'm Anne Jean Pierre with the Godly Business Podcast, and welcome to another episode of the Godly Business Podcast, where we discuss sales fundamentals with biblical principles. So, in today's episode, we are going to continue our conversation around sales fundamentals. And so, today I wanted to start with a verse which is found in Proverbs 23, and starting with the beginning of verse 7, which is, "For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he." So, whatever you think, therefore it is. So, I wanted to start with this verse first because I want to talk about what it is that is going to make a huge difference around your sales success. And the first thing is your mindset. So, if this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Anne Jean Pierre. I'm a sales coach with Better Sales Women. And then push this podcast so that we can discuss sales fundamentals with some biblical principles. So, I want to start today with my story, my journey um, as a sales coach now, but where I started as a salesperson. So, um, my first ever sales job was in '08. That was my first ever sales because market crash. That was pretty much the only job that was available, were a sales job. All right, so I got the sales job, and it was at the university that I attended. And the job was to contact alumni and get them to donate to the funds of the university. So I hated every second of that job. When I tell you, I used to break into sweats, I would have a pit in my stomach. I would get so anxious. My heart would beat so fast that I was thinking it was going to explode. Like, seriously, I hated this job. Okay. So after 2 weeks, I was just like, well, I give it a try. I'm about to quit. And so I was talking to the girl next to me, which, by the way, she was killing it. And when I say killing it, from my perspective, every single person she talked to on the phone, she was just closing, closing. And here I was 2 weeks later, not a single sale. I don't know how I didn't get fired because I did not make a sale. So after I told her, you know what, I think I'm going to quit. This is not it. This is not for me. It's not working. I'm out of here. She was like, she said something that really shifted my mindset around sales. And what she said was, sales is just a conversation. You're just having a conversation with someone. And I know to some of you guys, you might be like, that's it. That was it. Because here's the thing, every time I called someone, the first thing that was in my mind was everything that could possibly go wrong. They're going to hang up on me. They're going to curse me out. I was thinking of every single reason why a person would not want to sell to me, would not want to buy from me, right? So I was thinking of everything that could possibly go wrong. And so guess what? When I made the call, the person, all they felt was that energy, was the, you know what, you're not sure, so why should I give you money? You know what I mean? So I was not succeeding at all. 2 weeks, no sales, didn't get fired. Don't know why, but thank God, right? But the moment she told me that, I was like, hmm. So I watched her for like the first 20 minutes of the shift, didn't make a call, and I just watched her. And that's what she did. She was just having conversations. So here's what I did. I watched her some more. Then I made my first call. And guess what? First call, I sold. Not only did I sell that day, but I got pledges, which is like when the person not just donate, but they become a recurring donation, which is usually harder to get people to do, right? So it was just like, wow, okay. And from that moment on, my mindset shift around sales, and I've been in sales ever since. And I'm a sales trainer and sales coach, right? So this is why I started with that verse. It is so, so very important on what you think sales is, whatever your mindset around something is, that's what is going to be driving how you move around sales. So if you're thinking that sales is negative, it's, forcing people to buy, it's slimy, salesy, all those negative perspective around sales is probably one of the main thing that is stopping you from growing in sales, from becoming a successful salesperson, right? So that main thing is probably one of the first thing that you have to address. And that to me is the foundation of having a good sales career. And now you may be like, I'm not a sales, I'm not in sales career, but if you own a business and you're an entrepreneur, your career is sales. Your career is literally selling people your services or your product, right? So this is something that you definitely have to keep in mind and change your mindset around and change your perspective around what sales is. So sales is just that, is having a conversation with someone, is getting to know the person. Last week we talked about how once you know your prospects, you will be able to properly sell to them, right? You will be able to close to them because now you get to know what they need and get to know them in order for you to sell to them. So here's the thing, the best way to get to know that, we talked about it last week in the last podcast, is to ask lots of questions. Asking lots of questions allows you to have a better understanding of what the customer's needs are in order for you to close to them, to close them, right, as a client. But here's the thing that I would highly, highly recommend you do not do. And this is why I keep saying sales is a conversation. Most sales coaches nowadays will tell you the same thing I'm telling you, that sales script do not work. Why? Because they're restrictive and they don't really allow you to have, the sales flow of a conversation that you would want to have, right? So therefore, because it's restrictive, a lot of times it doesn't allow you to really truly be there in the conversation. One thing that you have to understand with conversation have a flow, right? You are going to get interrupted. You are going to get rebuttals, right? It's a back and forth and it's natural. One of my biggest pet peeve that I see a lot is when people, let's say you're having a conversation and a person has a question and then you're like, hold it. Yes, I will answer that question. Next, I'm going to get to that. I suggest you don't do that. Don't do that. And the reason being is that prospect now is ignoring everything you said until you answer that question. So it doesn't matter what you said because they have a question and you have not answered it. So everything that you're saying going forward is being glossed over until they have the questions to the answer to their questions. So my tip would be, even if you are going to go into details later on that subject that they just brought up, is to stop and answer the question. Do not be dismissive. Answer the question and let them know that you are going to go in more details into it, but answer the question right away. Because remember, at the end of the day, the point of the conversation is to hopefully close that prospect, right? Especially if you know this is the right product or service for them based on the conversation that you had. The point is to close them. So what you don't want to do is now having an objection at the end because you didn't answer this question. So keeping in mind that sales is a conversation would allow you that wiggle room to have the conversation flow. Forget your presentation has to go into this linear format that you have in your head. Conversations don't go that way, right? So allow yourself to have the flow of the conversation to answer the questions that you need to answer and get closer to closing, because that's the point of it. The other thing that I need to make sure you understand is that the person that you're talking to is a person, right? They are a human being. So therefore, their decision is going to be an emotional one. Remember that people make decisions emotionally and then they logically justify it. So once you understand that, you need to make sure that whatever you sell to the person, you get it back to their emotions. What does that look like? This is why I said, and I talked about it last week, and I'm going to keep on harping this because this is a huge game changer, right? After that first sales conversation, it's not like overnight I became like the sales guru, right? I didn't become the best salesperson overnight, right? I had to pay attention, learn a lot of things, corporate sales, all of these things, figure out what worked, what didn't work for me, and things like that. So the same thing's going to happen for you, right? But what is one of the biggest takeaway from me is when you are having your sales strategy and building that up, like we talked about last week, is asking a lot of questions. And asking those questions will allow you to discover what truly is the hang up for that person. I want you to get to know what it is the emotional aspect is for that person. What do I mean by that? So let's say you're having a sales conversation and then the person tells you, you know what, I'm a little bit nervous about this decision because, and if they don't say because, get the because. Get them to tell you why they're nervous, right? If there's like, oh, I'm a little nervous about the decision, don't accept that. Get them to tell you why. And also, if you sense that they have a hang up, get them to name the emotion that they are feeling. That is very, very important. The reason why you want them to name the emotion that they are feeling is because at the end of your presentation, you're going to tie it back to that emotion. For example, let's say you are selling to a software, to a corporate company. I know I use a lot of corporate sales. Just keep up with me, right? And the person is like, you know what? I'm a little bit nervous about switching because my team, I have to do the whole learning curve again. Great. Now you know what their emotion is, that they're nervous, and you know their reason why. So now when you are making your presentation and presenting your solution, you could be like, hey, I completely understand why you would be nervous about switching and your whole team having to relearn everything. Completely get it. You know what? This is why I think this product is going to be best for you. One is that now, not only do we install the software for you, we also train your team on how to use the software. And we also provide IT support if they have issues around, so they're not left on their own to figure it out. So all those solutions will make it so much easier and comforted. You don't even ever have to be nervous or anxious about any of this decision. We will walk you through the whole process, right? And then you continue on. So the reason why I tell you that is because they're telling you that they're nervous. They're telling you that they're anxious. And they tell you the reason why they're anxious and nervous. Guess what? You just answered that question for them, which makes it a lot easier to close at the end because now that hang up, you already answered for. So this is why I say ask so many questions. Get to know your prospect a lot. Really dig deep to know the everything that you need to know in order for you to move forward with the sales and close it. So now that you understand that, hey, sales is just that. It's a conversation. And in that conversation, you need to allow for the natural back and forth that happens in a conversation. Not only do you need that to happen, right? Because it's not scary. It's nothing that is like, oh my gosh, if the person doesn't sell, if I don't sell to everybody, like I'm going to die or something, right? Because I used to be there, right? Remove that pressure from yourself. Remove that pressure that you have to close everybody. You have to sell to everybody. Understand the purpose of the purpose of the sell conversation is to determine whether or not this is the best customer for you. whether or not this is a right fit. And with that, you can also understand that not everybody is the right fit. Not everybody is the right customer for you. And that will relieve that pressure. Because trust me, I get it. I used to be in sell, like straight commission sales, right? Like there's no base pay. You don't sell, you don't get paid, right? That's it. So guess what? That amps up the pressure to where like I have to sell to everybody. I have to sell to everybody. You don't. Not everyone is your customer. And that's something I had to learn, right? Not everyone is your customer. But with that being said, you also have to understand that you need to truly understand your customer and then figure out if it's the right fit. And if it is the right fit, you ask the great questions that you need to in order to get to them. So by removing that pressure and that layer and just knowing, hey, it's just a conversation to know if we're a right fit, boom, that will help to release your that pressure and get to understand your customer. Now that you ask those questions and you can understand your customer and understand it's a sales flow, it's not a presentation. You do not have to hit every single dot. You have no idea how many times that I've had a sales presentation and I didn't even get to step 2 and I sold, right? Sometimes it doesn't take all of that, right? To get to close a customer. So I get what like sometimes you feel like, okay, I have to like do all of these things when it oftentimes is not necessary. You do want to be prepared, but also be prepared to move with the flow, to pivot into to you know flow as conversations often do. And now that you done all of that, now you can go ahead and focus on assuring that you are answering to your customers' emotional needs so that they can be comfortable to make that decision. All right. So I hope this conversation was very helpful. I hope you got a lot out of it. Um, we are going to continue the sales fundamental conversations throughout this month. So this is one of the things that you need to understand is to reframe your mind around what sales is. And that is fundamental. If you can rethink, if as a man thinks, so he's he. I want you to reframe your mind that sales is a conversation, and therefore, with conversation, you can move the conversation to where you want it to be. The other thing I almost forgot is there's this concept that you have to control the conversation. That's true. You do need to be in control of the conversation, but you don't need to be so in control of the conversation that the person feels they have no words to say, no way to come in because you're like so rigid, right? So be in control of the conversation, but let the conversation flow. Um, I don't know why I just thought about this, but I remember on one of my sales, I have an older I have a lot of older prospects that I had to sell to in one of my jobs. And one of the things with older folks is they love to talk. They love to tell you all the stories and all the teas that has happened over their life, especially if they're vets, right? Veterans love to tell you about their stories. So sometimes the conversation can take longer than necessary. And you do have to control the conversation to make sure like you steering the conversation in the proper direction so you're not spending like 2 hours having a conversation about the dude's dog, right? Yes, and that way you need to control the conversation. But you also have to understand your audience, right? In order for you to make sure that you are being respectful of them and also allowing them to be themselves and answering their question to close. So this is why I mean by like making sure that you are allowing conversation to flow because you don't want to just abruptly cut someone off, if that makes sense, right? And with those people that it's like, hey, it's hard because they just want to talk. There is a way to control the conversation, but still allow them to feel in control of the conversation, right? So hope all of this is helpful. Of course, if you have questions, concern, please let me know. I would love to hear your feedback. Again, this is technically um, my second video podcast. So pardon me if things seem to be a little bit still shifting. I am still learning the setup. So if you have tips, I'll welcome them. Questions, concern, please feel free to reach out. I love to teach you more about sales, and so you could grow and be successful in your business, in your sales career. So of course, leave me a comment. Let me know what you would like to learn more about. If you want me to dig deeper into a specific subject, love to do that. So that is it for me. So I hope that you learned a lot. I pray that God will keep you, instruct you, and counsel you and teach you in the way that you should go. All you have to do is ask Him. All right, that's it for me. You guys have an amazing day, and I will talk to you next week.